What up there, Twitch? This is your boy Kirito. Getting back at you again with some solo rank Road to Emerald. Let's get started. First, I'm gonna go over my settings that I use. Only thing on general that I use that I recommend using is obviously drone after prep is automatic. And then I like to use cycle and sight camera groups on, but I forgot to turn that on recently. Because of I deleted the game and restarted it and everything to see if it helps out a sound glitch, but it didn't. So yeah, but yeah, leave that on, and then I also turn minimal metrics on too. Other than that, HUD, I have it on custom, compass appearance simplified, everything on. Health is number only though. Stance indicators off. Action reminders I have off. It makes a beautiful HUD for me. General reminders off. Teammate online ID off. I just have icons and outlines because some people might have long ass names and everything and it takes up a bunch of more space. And then bans off, destroy drones off, and that is it. Audio, I have music off, dialogue and voice chat 80 and then 85, night mode, display, performance, field of view 84, HUD display area 95, menu display area 90, brightness 55, controls disabled, advanced, disabled. Always keep this disabled. It only helps in terrorist hunt, but if you're gonna be warming up in terrorist hunt, you don't want that on. Disabled, classic. I use 20 and 40. I do use updated here and there too, so it's just personal preference at that point. Left and right dead zone both 10. Controller ADS standard 32. Aim, hold instead of toggle. Turn off screen shake from default down to off. And that is it. Everything else is personal preference. Okay, let's go over my attack operators real quick. First, on all shotguns I use hollow A and laser. That's just me. But for the LA 5A2 for sledge and for Thatcher, I use 1.5 flash hider vertical. Pistols, muzzle brake always. Besides, for IQ, I use suppressor. Okay, and then the AR-33, I use 1.5. Sometimes I might go to one of these depending on the situation I'm in, but 1.5 compensator vertical. And then I use claymores. Ash, I use 1.5 flash hider vertical for the G36, and then for the R4C, I use hollow A flash and vertical with claymores. Thermite, I don't know, I have that on. I use 2.0 majority of the time. Sometimes you might see me use ACOG, but compensator vertical with smokes to help the diffuse. Twitch, I use red dot C flash hider vertical. All all DMRs 2.0 muzzle and vertical. That's for all DMRs. And then I use the claymores. Not gonna go over Montang. Basically, for glass, I use hollow A muzzle and then vertical, and then I use hollow C on all bearing nines with flash hider. I use a mixture of all these depending on the situation. Um, Fuse, I use down here too. If there's a hatch that's reinforced, which if there's a hatch in general, it's gonna be reinforced probably. So I bring the hard breach. But if there's no hatch and I might use smokes if I can probably get in and help with the diffuse, or I might use breach charge and play vertical. Other than that, I use 1.5 flash hider vertical. Sometimes I might use 2.0 for the AK-12, and then for the LMG 6P41, 1.5 flash hider and vertical. Okay, Blitz. Okay, I'm not even gonna go over Blitz. IQ, I use 1.5 flash hider. For the Commando, I use 1.5 flash hider vertical, and then I use hollow A compensator vertical. Like I said earlier, I use the suppressor on her pistol only, claymores. Buck, I use 1.5 compensator And then I use the hard breach charge. Blackbeard, I use 1.5 flash hider vertical. Sometimes I do use the 2.0. And then I use the claymores majority of the time. If my team needs help getting the wall, I will bring impacts. Capital, I use 1.5 flash hider vertical, 1.5 compensator vertical for the M249, and then I use hard breach charge. Abana, I use 2.0 compensator vertical. Sometimes you'll see me use a 1.5, and then stun. For Jackal, I use the 1.5 flash hider vertical. For the PDW9, I use 1.5 muzzle brake and vertical, and I use claymores. For Ying, I use suppressor 1.5 vertical. Sometimes, if I don't use a suppressor, I'll be using compensator. And then I use hard breach charge or smokes if it majority of the time when I run Ying, it's gonna be hard breach charge because I'm gonna be going from the hatches probably or helping my team out. Normally when I play Ying, it's also an operator I play when I solo Q2, so that's another reason why I bring it. Zofia, I do not recommend using the LMG, but 1.5 compensator vertical, but I don't recommend using it at all. No help, honestly, and actually use flash hider now because flash hider is probably the better one to use now. For the M762, I use 1.5 flash hider vertical. And use claymores. Dokubi, I use a mixture of all this for the gadgets, but other than that, it's basic class. Lion, 1.5 flash hider vertical. Sometimes I use a 2.0, and then I use the Gon 6 since he has a big magazine size. Claymore, and then sometimes I use the impact grenade to help out with the wall. Finka, I use suppressor 1.5 vertical. If I don't use a suppressor, I use flash hider. I already told you the LMG earlier. I use the Gon 6, and I use smokes. Maverick, for his AR-15, 1.5 muzzle and vertical. The reason why I use the 1.5 and not the 2.0 is because this gun only holds 10 bullets, and the higher the scope is, like 2.0 or 2.5 or 3.0, I tend to miss my shots a lot. Then for the M4 1.5 compensator vertical, some people use flash hider. Your choice. You can use all of them. You can use literally all of these if you want. His gun's a beam. And then I use claymores. Nomad 1.5 flash, 1.5 flash vertical, and then stuns. Gridlock, I use a mixture of all three of these, or I should say 2.0, 1.5, and 2.5. Yeah, all three. Compensator vertical, 1.5 flash hider vertical. Matter of fact, I think I'm gonna go back to using comp on this gun actually. Um, if I use the LMG, I use the Gon 6, but if I use the AR, I use a Super Shorty. I use a mixture of all of these. Majority of the time, I use smoke or EMPs though. Knock, suppressor 1.5, frag grenades. Amaru, LMG would be 1.5 comp and vertical, and then I use the Gon 6, and then for the SMG-11, I use flash hider, vertical, and hollow A. Honestly, you can use whatever you want when it comes. Muzzle brake and flash hider are the two go-tos I go to. But other than that, yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, you can use them all. I've seen a lot of people use different attachments for the SMG-11. And then hard breach charge. Cali, flash hider, reflex C, and then claymores. Iana, hollow A, flash hider vertical, 1.5 flash vertical, frag grenades. Ace, 1.5 flash hider vertical, and then claymores. And then for the Zero loadout, 1.5 comp vertical. Sometimes I will use 2.0. Compensator 1.5. I also use comp on defense too. And then I'll use the hard breach charge. Flores, I use 1.5 comp vertical. Sometimes you see me use 2.0 claymores. Ulsa 1.5. Sometimes you might see me use 2.0 PDW 1.5 muzzle and vertical. Also, I do use the compensator on that. On her main primary, the 5.56. And I use claymores and sometimes EMPs to help out with the wall sends. I use 1.5 comp vertical. And then I use the Gon 6 because of the high magazine size. I use a hard breach charge. Sometimes you might see me use claymores. And then Grim, I use the Hollow A, Flash Hider, and Vertical. And then I use claymores. That is it for the attackers. For the defenders, I use 1.5 and Flash, Hollow, and Vert. Deploy with Shield, Mute. I use Hollow A, Flash, C4 for the UMP 45 for Castle, and also I'm going to do both Castle and Pulse at the same time. Comp 1.5 vertical. Super Shorty for Castle with the bulletproof camera. For him, I use the C4 for Pulse, and then I use the M45 pistol. Okay, Doc. I use the MP5 Flash Hider 1.5 vertical. If you use the P90, I don't know why I have that. Use the 1.5 Flash Hider, and then I use the Bailiff 410 for rotates, and then the bulletproof camera. Rook, I use 1.5 Flash Hider 1.5 vertical, and then I use the impacts. Capcan, I use 1.5 Flash Hider vertical. Same loadout. This is the exact same loadout I use for Azami and for Tachanka, but Azami and Tachanka will be having the Hollow B on or the Hollow A on. One of the two. And I use Nitro. Tachanka, like I said, yeah, Hollow A is what's on right now. And then deployable shield. Jaeger, I use Hollow A, Flash, and vertical. And then I use bulletproof camera. If I don't need a camera, I will use the barbed wire. Bandit, I use, like I said earlier, compensator with Hollow A. Nitro Cell Frost, I use 1.5 suppressor vertical. If I don't use a suppressor, I use compensator with angle grip. And then I use the deployable shield. I'm gonna actually change up the. I'm gonna go old school real quick. Back to the Pro League old school with her. Okay, Valkyrie. I use the. I'm gonna go back to Hollow A, Flash Hider, vertical. Matter of fact, yeah, I'll stay with the Flash Hider. And then I use nitros. For Cavi, I use the suppressor and Hollow A, and then the impacts. For Echo, I use the Hollow A and vertical. The reason why I use Hollow is because I just feel like there's more recoil with the 1.5 in my eyes. And then I use the deployable shield. For Mira, I use Hollow A comp vertical. This is what I use for all the other Vector 45 ACP guns in the game, which I think there's only one other one that would be Goyo, but Goyo I use a 1.5 on his, and then I have Nitro Cell. Legion, I use Hollow A comp and vertical, and then impacts. Ella, I use comp, hollow, and vert with barbed wire. Vigil, I use Hollow A, Flash Hider, vertical with impact. Maestro, I use Hollow A, Flash Hider, vertical. Matter of fact, I'll use compensator actually, to be honest. And I use impacts. Oh, and then for the shotgun, I use 1.5 vertical. And for all the other ones that use this shotgun, it's gonna be 1.5 vertical. It might be for the alibi one, I might use the 2.0, and then for the zombie, it might be 1.5 or lower. Alibi, it's a hollow actually. You use 2.0. I haven't done it yet. Okay, and this one I use the hollow A flash hider vertical. Deployable shield. I go back and forth between these two. Mm, that loadout, nothing really for that one. But for arcade, I use the hollow A flash and vertical, 1.5 and vertical, and C4. Mozzie, I use hollow A flash and vertical. I hope they bring this gun for another operator in the game. P10 Roni 1.5 flash hider vertical with the nitro. Warden, I use 1.5 compensator vertical, and then I use nitro cell. I said Goyo earlier, so I use nitro cell. Well, I use the hollow A flash hider or hollow A flash, both hollows and flash. Impacts, orcs, I use the 1.5 comp vertical, and then I use the barbed wire. Actually, take that back, I use proximity alarm. Malusi, I use the hollow A flash and vertical with impacts. Aroni, I use the hollow A flash hider vertical, 1.5 muzzle and vertical, and then I use normally camera, but sometimes barbed wire. And then Thunderbird, I use suppressor hollow vertical. If I don't use suppressor like earlier I said, I would use flash hider. And then nitro cell. Thorn, I use hollow A flash and vertical with deployable shield. A zombie, I use, like I said earlier, impacts. Soulless, I use hollow A flash hider and then impacts, and then that would be it for what I rock for attachments and my settings. Now let's get into rank and let's see how it goes.